This is CEST, guys. Game number 1, we're just getting loaded into it. CEST did start the fight right now. This is the very first move. I'm sorry about the volume, people. So what do you make of those compositions? Shuffle.
I like the choice because I think, as you were saying, that the Jester, especially both Jester teams being up, it's just so threatening. And there's a lot of direct damage on this team, so I think the Goliath team looks a tad slower, but maybe it's not slow enough. And the early pull right there, very surprising, but I guess that's what happens when you don't put snuff on your Arbalest.
Yeah, it's kind of wise as well, because this removes the threat. Like, the direct threat is gone right now, and Goliath can no longer be just shot on the face by this Arbalest, right? So this basically means that Sidelad is almost forced to use the Bo3, which obviously alleviates a lot of pressure that might have otherwise come across the board. Right now we can see Goliath as well, getting ready with the Vendetta here, so he removes... Okay, this is actually unfortunately resisted, so this dodge debuff doesn't quite land on the Jester of Sidelad here. So CEST here is, I feel, at a slight advantage, also being able to land a stun on his opponent's mark dealer is a very important thing, I feel, for CEST here. So CEST's composition, obviously, this is the Halo comp, which you have seen perform extremely well throughout the tournaments before. So this was introduced in the Mizikins tournament, which happened just directly before this one, and this composition got its use just to the finals. Obviously, kind of a surprising thing that, Cloak Goliath didn't go for a ban on this one. It looks extremely powerful, and, this Jester being able to land Finale around 10, 2, or 3 is nothing surprising on this particular setup. So I feel like Goliath has to be really scared right now, or at least has to try to outpace his opponent from the get-go.
Yeah, Goliath starting out with the early bleed, even got the fortunate crit to stack it onto Crusader, who does need to lose HP at some point in this game, but CEST already back into starting formations, so just took a Bola and a Dirk Stab, and now we're going into turn 2.
Yeah, he goes for a sniper shot, so this puts a lot of pressure on this Occultist, and you really do not want to lose your tempo if you're Goliath. Obviously quite unfortunate he did not go first. This heal obviously just, again, helps you a little bit to stabilize, at least to some extent. But this still means that, this Occultist will probably never lose the pressure, really. I mean, the mark goes away, right? But there's still a threat of that Finale coming by from the Jester here. And this BH, obviously quite a decent damage dealer as well. So I feel like Goliath might just be using this Occultist throughout the fight just to maybe pull the Arbalest forward just to disable this damage and also to move the Jester to rank 3 consistently. We can see also a stun coming down on this Harriman. This is kind of heads up play by Sidelad, aka CEST here, which actually means that there is no repose coming through, and that's probably going to persist for quite some time right now. I'm also quite surprised not to see the Grapeshot Blast, which is kind of a staple build. Vendetta plus Grapeshot is a very serious threat, which can crit and really do a lot of damage across the board. How do you feel about that Harvest?
The Harvest, I think it's solid. I don't see too much dodge stacked on the other team, so I don't think he's gonna have too much trouble hitting him. And he's got a lot of early pressure, and every turn the Jester does literally anything that's just charging up Finale, so it's gonna become a bigger threat, not just to Occultist, but on, if he has to wait till turn 4, it's a threat to pretty much everyone at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Also kind of, consistently lowers down everybody's HP. However, you can see Goliath actually controlling this fight fairly well. So he again moves the Jester to rank 4, which means that this Finale is not going to happen anytime soon. You probably need about 2 turns right now to get things set up properly for that. Obviously, the Harvest being used right kind of slows this whole thing down. Also, this mark on the Arbalest followed up by the Houndmaster's Rush really does a lot of pressure on Sidelad, perhaps shifts the momentum a little bit, because right now if Sidelad does indeed activate this Arbalest, it is going to be quite hard for him to actually just sustain her on high HP, right? He can no longer heal her right now, so this is kind of going to be a painful situation for CEST as we look at this fight right now. So also we can see the duelist advance here on the Arbalest, dropping her to 0 HP, and honestly there is no active healer available that can basically bring her back to full HP reliably. So we have some sort of short stream lag. However, okay, it's back to normal. We can see this Arbalest, honestly, 0 HP, no real way of stabilizing here, at least until the following 10. So what Cloak Goliath has available right now is quite a few opportunities to just take down this Arbalest. So do you think he's actually going to be able to capitalize on this and just take her down? Oh, that's
I guess so. The repose.
Oh, this is the answer. Holy moly, the first character going down in this matchup is indeed the Arbalest by Cyberlad, or Sis. And this is very important, guys, because this actually means that Cyberlad lost basically all his damage pressure he has brought with this composition. So right now he has a character who's capable of doing some executes, he has a Jester who's rank 4, and Claude Goliath has a perfectly healthy, okay, that's kind of an overstatement obviously, or an exaggeration, but still a fairly healthy composition ready to deliver even more pain upon Sis's deck over here. So what do you make of this shuffle?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you gotta feel bad for Sis right there, because he had to bola, because Arbalest the Death Door, she's already at risk, so you gotta take that turn in case you get the 1 in 4 and lose it. So he has to bola, and then he dies anyway. So obviously you don't want to lose anyone this early, and now you lost your pretty solid healer against this bleed damage, and then also you lost a very big burst threat, so you can't exploit these marks anymore.
Yeah. And you had to see like Goliath actually performing extremely well right now, so he's able to take control over this ridiculously scary composition of Sis. So this comp has actually won so many games so far. It was consistently banned whenever it appeared on the decks of those players in this tournament, starting from the group stages as well, also in the qualifiers. So it was honestly one of the most, it was the thing that everybody was really afraid of. Cyberlad had a lot of momentum coming into 10-1 as well. He was able to go fast, land all this scary damage, and right now he really lost all the control. Those are mostly the pools that Goliath has been able to apply, and this seriously places this in a very scary position. Potentially even, you know, he might be thinking about, you know, going into game number 2 already, because this is a very rough spot for him. Obviously this Jester is still able to cast the finale. It's not all over. A lot of bleeding also coming down, so this might be an issue overall. You can also see this Jester being pulled too fast, so I'm kind of surprised by this. What do you make of that one, Shuffle?
I think he's trying to get all the damage he can in right now with that point blank, which I'm assuming is coming this turn or next turn. And Jester is already attacked, so Jester can't, you know, get pulled and then finale. So he's actually pretty. That is a lot of damage for that repose. Yeah. My goodness, but yeah, I think Jester is probably not long for this world. If he gets finale off, then that's just going to be amazing. But it may not happen.
It looks like he's going to get the finale off actually, because you know this doesn't actually even hit, and right now it's very likely that, you know, the Jester just gets a free finale. Then you have to feel this might have been a mistake by Goliath, you know, allowing this Jester go into rank 1 for free, which he usually has to pay quite a price for, right? He has to Dirk Stab, which isn't the most effective move in the world, you know, doesn't do that much damage, not too accurate either. So right now, Sideline's, I feel like he might be in prime position to take over the game once again. So
yeah,
finish him also
gave him a breath of life.
Yeah, we have Dev's Door here on the BH. We do have the Jester able to activate and deliver a lot of head upon Goliath's composition here. Ooh. Obviously, yeah, there's a high heal though. This is usually 1 or 2 crits, but that was 44 for some reason. Crazy stuff. But we have 2 characters at Dev's Door right now for Goliath. That doesn't look too good, honestly. You might just see Dirk Stab from the Jester of Cyberlad here. You know, Sis just might do a Dirk Stab here on whatever target he finds suitable. He might not even have to use the finale there. Obviously, he goes for 100% execute from the get-go here. That's kind of a difficult choice, right? He goes for Devil here on the BH and evens out the character numbers here on the battlefield. Also, the weird reconstruction comes through. They have to feel like, oh, that's first of all just 3. That's the usual number I say. Moreover, you know, even this 19 HP occultist might not be safe here, honestly. You might just see a finale come down.
This is, I think, probably the hardest part with Jester is, do you finale? I guess you do. Oh my goodness. But otherwise, it's like, do you just hold the finale? Do you go for that 1 extra Dirk Stab, see if you can squeeze out some more damage before you fire the big gun?
Yeah. That's really the question here. So, honestly, this is just such a big turn for Goliath. Like, I feel like pulling this Jester forward was really what broke this fight for him, right? So you can see how powerful Halo's composition is here, like Sis is actually controlling it quite well. But honestly, I thought this was actually Goliath's game to lose, and him just allowing this finale to come through for free was probably what lost him the game, because it looks quite scary for him right now. He has an almost dead Highwayman. It's going to be CEST's turn right now. He's just going to take advantage of the 0 HP on the Highwayman. He'll just kill him from the get-go with this BH, and this is just all she wrote for him, really. So Goliath is very, very likely to lose game number 1 here.
I'm sure Houndmaster's hoping he can clutch, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we do see quite a lot of stress coming through, right? But I don't think it's just going to be sufficient. You have to feel like Goliath just kind of botched it a little bit. Like, he dropped the ball on that move there. Obviously, CEST still has access to healing skills, right? He can also get a crit here, as he does. This means that everybody is going to be perfectly safe, and I just don't see the Soundmaster pressuring CEST's composition out of here anytime soon. Those are 3 quite healthy characters, granted the face of the game. This game is also extremely fast, as you can see. We are basically, 7-8 minutes in, and they're about to finish game number 1. And for comparison, like the series yesterday, the first series of the day, actually took an hour 30 minutes to resolve. Obviously, we had 2 very slow players yesterday. These guys are just playing so aggressively. Those are very, very volatile compositions. Those guys are controlling game number 1. So you might see a change of pace coming into game 2 probably for both of them. But this is just how this game plays sometimes. And you just have to feel bad for Goliath, because he has very little he can do right now. He's pulled, stunned, locked down, and that's all she wrote for the guy.
Yeah, especially with BH and the massive kill secure that if he doesn't get it with Dirk Stably, he just didn't. So BH is going to wrap this up next turn. And,
absolutely, yes.
It was odd at first, because when you looked at CEST's lineup, and there's no snuff on the Arbalest, and that got exploited, immediately. It felt like it was one of those situations where he could have just lost the game in the team builder section, and then that one suspect pull actually threw the game back the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is game 1 being over so quickly and so decisively in the end. So CEST, looked like he was in a dire position, but he managed to claw his way back into the game. Perhaps because of the opening that Goliath gave him to some extent. So you just have to feel kind of bad for Goliath there. I feel he might realize he made quite a serious mistake there. So I'm just going to try to change the score right now, which is quite difficult, honestly. And guys, we will be trying to go into the second game right now. So obviously, just a very quick note to you all. Sorry, my Streamlabs is playing up, so it's going to take a while. Because for some reason, it's somewhat laggy right now. Okay, it's perfectly fine right now again. So we have a look at bans right now. So obviously, this composition by CEST, not the Tainted Devotion, the Crit Happens composition, aptly named here, is no longer going to be available for the men. Whereas Cloaked Goliath is very much free to just repeat playing with the previous composition as well. So we might just see how it goes, honestly. I'm not sure whether these guys decide to keep doing what they're doing, or they might just make some alterations here. So Cloaked Goliath obviously has an opportunity to switch. CEST is indeed forced to switch. And you might really see the Tainted Devotion being picked here. The other Jester composition, very potent, so much damage and control. It just feels like this is the go-to setup for CEST coming into this match right now.
Yeah, why not too? Because your last game, maybe CEST will swap out to Snuff if he decides to run Tainted Devotion. But that team you just ran did pretty well, even with a suspect Trinket choice. So I'm thinking that in case maybe Goliath runs that team back or something, it's already a good shell of 3 characters, and you're just swapping out a stun for a little more pressure and an off healer, actually, from Flagellant instead of Crusader.
Yeah. So it might be still a very scary composition to play against, especially with those bleeds coming down from the Flagellant and the Jester. They will really shred whatever composition Goliath brings to the table, right? Because those comps, quite decent as far as dodge goes, but honestly, this is just looking quite scary as well. Because the Jester obviously provides quite a high accuracy buff, so it feels like really Goliath might be in a lot of trouble right now.
I'm curious what Goliath brings. This is my lack of matchup knowledge, because I'm not really sure what does the best against these last 2 teams. I'm gonna assume it's the second Jester team. I really don't see a reason to not take it at this point. Yeah. So I'm wondering what Goliath takes instead.
Maybe a Flagellant, because he really doesn't want to lose both games from the get-go, so he might just go for the Flagellant, because he's probably one of those tournament power picks right now. So the actually works composition by Cloaked Goliath looks like a very likely setup to be picked right now into the following matchup. So we'll just see this in a while, so we're just waiting for Goliath to obviously get set up here. And I feel like CEST is ready, so the second Goliath is indeed ready as well. We'll go into game number 2 of the day. And this is very thrilling, CEST did win the previous tournament as well, so, him performing so well on the very first game is quite exciting and refreshing to see. It means he's also prepared for whatever is going to happen, and we'll just see whether this does indeed bear fruit in game number 2 as well as it did in game number 1, because overall he did not buckle up. So how do you say this? Under pressure. What do you do under pressure in English? I just dropped the phrase here.
You buckle under pressure?
Oh, you buckle under pressure, thank you. He didn't buckle under pressure indeed, thanks man. And he, despite losing the Arbalest, was able to control the game fairly well. And yeah, he did in the end come up victorious. So I'm very, very thrilled to see what happens in the second one here.
Yeah, it's got to be a huge sigh of relief for CEST, especially because I think Arbalest, didn't she go down on like turn 2 or was it turn 3? She went down super early in that game and he's still able to come back. So that speaks a lot to the mental fortitude and some of the decisions that happen around turn 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I also believe we are indeed going into the second match or second game of this matchup here, and we shall see what compositions the guys did bring to the table here. So let's just go to full screen right now and watch as they fight against one another here. No surprise here for Goliath, he brings the Flagellant to the table. However, Sidolite actually opts for this tanky composition. We call it the Zedus comp on my stream because that's a comp that was initially brought to life by Zedus. It's a very heavy stress composition, extremely tanky as well at that, so quite difficult to manage. Obviously we see the pull here from the shield breaker to start things off. It's actually very decent for Goliath because this means that this Crusader no longer able to actually drop these Zealous Accusations here, which is his primary purpose on this team. Obviously the stun's also not likely to come through anytime soon. However, this does expose the Flagellant to being pushed, which he probably doesn't carry any snuff there, so it is indeed a push that does successfully go through. So this is quite greedy composition, obviously, by Goliath. Seeing the movement available to CEST here, you have to feel like he just gets punished for this straight away, right? And there is no really easy way of setting this Flagellant back in place. You can obviously Shadow Fade and then Bola, but you really have to feel like against a heavy stress composition that CEST is sitting on right now, this might not be the best course of action because you really want to start the fight with a lot of momentum, just pressure CEST into healing and defending instead of just playing this game out the way he wants to.
Yeah, I'm thinking with this move, it kind of feels like a half daze or a half stun in some way because, Flagellant is likely going last because of this, and then also you have to do some inefficient stuff, and it just shows the power of movement where stun and daze eat up like a turn or mess up your order, but like a good movement hit just messes up 2 or 3 people at a time, and I think just movement's very powerful. So I don't know if Flagellant always needs snuff, but it definitely feels like it could have been warranted in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, he saw, like, Goliath knew this was going to be one of the 2 compositions by CEST, right? And one of them at least featured a lot of movement here, so we can see that this case here is indeed an abomination with the movement skill. So this might have been something that was to be anticipated, right? Obviously, we can see. By the way, we can see CEST actually taking quite a lot of time to play his turns out. So he is following his mantra. He has been repeating this consistently throughout the tournament. If you are in an important match like this, you should always take your time. You have 30 seconds for every single turn. Obviously, some of those turns are going to be faster because there are just so much fewer choices, but if you have to choose between 2 or 3 characters and 4 abilities each, you obviously should take your time because there is no penalty for just, extending the game time a little bit, and there is quite a lot of punishment you can take if you do misplay in such a situation, right? And the guys are really trying to get the 2-0 on the day here. Obviously, CEST is going for this right now because simply he is trying to leave the group from the first seed, right? Actually, it's kind of a scary situation because from group number 2, from group number 1, we have Mangle and SBRH advancing forward, and both those players extremely scary at their own right. And I feel like actually SBRH, who has 2nd seed, is even more scary. So if you are CEST, you might actually want to drop a game today because it might be beneficial for you to actually go 2nd, because I really don't want to be facing SBRH if I'm CEST. Nobody wants to be facing that guy. He's like a human AI, man. So seeing this one here, Sis taking some control again, he stuns the Arbalest. Actually, it's very good for him, right? Because this means there is no more illuminating flare coming through this turn. Also double stuns, very decent control overall. 2 turns missed means there's like so little actually that Goliath can do this turn.
I was thinking back to what you just said about potentially dropping a game. Where do you do the tactical game throw? Or like the random concede or something like that? It's, I mean, this whole bracket and the pool and stuff like that is just stacked with killers, so I don't think... I mean, you could tactically drop the game, but it's just, you know, you could do that and then just end up losing a set just because of it. Everyone's just so good right now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Goliath, like, if you let this guy take an issue, he'll take the match. Just that Sis isn't letting that happen, right? It's kind of scary as well, because Goliath is playing this offensive composition, whereas Sis is mostly playing this stress-based one. So it's kind of actually disturbing to see that, first of all, Goliath already resolve broken almost across the board 10-2, and second of all, he hasn't really been able to deliver any damage across the board. So Sidelad's successful at both doing damage and stress, whereas honestly Goliath not doing that much at all here in this game.
This is definitely peak stress comp play, I feel like, right now, because usually the way I judge effective stress play is like how quickly you're landing these afflictions. Usually you want maybe 1 or 2 by turn 2 or 3, and it looks like probably by the end of turn 3 or maybe turn 4, everyone's going to be afflicted, and then you're going to start staring down some heart attacks while you have to keep eating these stuns from the 2 frontliners. So very scary position right now for Goliath.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sis is delivering a lot of control across the board. You can see that he is also able to drop a lot of bellows here. So this composition by Goliath here really under heavy debuffs. I feel like this might just do 0 damage across the board. Obviously the Impale works, right? But it does like 2 damage. It usually does like 5 to 6 here. So honestly the Blight comes down, but it might be just too little too late already. You can see 3 characters resolve broken, 10-3. It is usually the case that around 10-5 you can see those afflictions really coming into play on more than 1 or 2 characters, right? You can see already all 4 characters, I feel right now, being resolve broken once Goliath activates this Arbalest, which he does. And we see another affliction come through, obviously, because there is nothing to prevent this from happening. Fearful comes down. It's quite a nasty one as well. And honestly, Goliath has to be feeling quite bad about this current spot, because, you know, you have not taken the MAA out yet. You have not really threatened anybody on your opponent's team. You are heavily afflicted across the board. You're also not the healthiest man alive here in this game here. So you just really are bleeding on multiple fronts, and at the same time you have actually exerted 0 pressure on your opponent. It feels really scary right now to be Goliath.
Which is a shame too, because obviously I'm a huge Grave Robber fan, and I think that Grave Robber probably has the closest thing to a single skill to deal with Man-at-Arms in the form of Panic Darts, but it's just between all the movement and the control and just the raw stress output coming from Sis right now, it doesn't matter. Even if you get like 2 or 3 Panic Darts off, it's still too slow to counteract this pressure.
I mean, I also love Grave Robber. I've actually seen her used on the lunge compositions as well, but those darts are usually quite effective. We have actually seen quite a few games already in this tournament where those darts were indeed able to take over the game. Yesterday, for instance, SBRH dropped a game to Mango just because of the Flagellant and the Grave Robber, you know, were able to, just because they were able to stay alive and stabilize and actually drop those darts across the board. And those darts indeed were the demise of SBRH in that game number 2 against Mango. And right here we can see that this Grave Robber not really that effective.
Oh no!
Also this Flagellant just goes down from... You have to feel Hara, right? This might even just Hara. Those like probably 2 Hara stacks because this Abel has just transformed for the 2nd time. Quite an optimal rotation as well by Sidelad. And this is looking super dire for Goliath right now. Losing this Flagellant, definitely not the plan for Goliath here.
No, when you have Flagellant, you're expecting him to live till like the end of the game, burn all of his exsanguinates, and ooh, good death blow, but all of his low health skills, maybe hit Death's Door once or twice to heal the party. Like when he dies to either a finale or a heart attack early, you know, that's not last hero standing, it's just so bad. Like it's such a bad feeling for a Flagellant player. Yeah,
absolutely it is. And you have to feel like there is a way out of this situation for Goliath. You could have just used the lunge first, and then activated, activated the Antiquarian, I think, sorry, the Arbalest, and to heal the Flagellant and then to activate the Flagellant himself. So he probably kind of messed up the 10 order there. Obviously this would have required quite a lot of effort from the man, but still this was something that he could have solved. Obviously, right now, this is no longer a talking point, which means that this Flagent being dead is probably the end of Goliath, because there is so much damage still available to Seidel out. You can see Stunning Blow actually coming through. There's 13 crit as well. It's a heart attack on this Shield Breaker. And this is really not looking too hot for Goliath, man.
It's not, especially with Shield Breaker. You know, she does a lot of awesome things. She has such a diverse kit, but when you don't even have time to get Serpent Sway up at least once at some point in the early game, like that's just a testament to the control and the pressure coming down right now. Because right now I don't see us. Oh, there goes Shield Breaker.
Yeah.
I don't see a way for Goliath out of this. I'm pretty sure it's solved or whatever you want to call it at this point.
You would definitely call this one solved, and even if Goliath was to crash right now, you just call this one game over. You have to feel, right? Because this Arbor is just doing 70 damage on a crit. Obviously something there, but still Crusader can just still heal this up. The Handmaster can heal himself as well, and that's just looking quite good for Sis overall. Like, he took a very decisive game number 2. You have to feel like game 1 was kind of close, but this one here, honestly, Goliath looked completely controlled here, or even you could say flummoxed. We can see another act out come down. That just really doesn't seem to matter at all. Also, 1 HP left here on this Handmaster feels kind of bad, because this means you will never able to even control this fight anymore. And this Zealous Accusation, which I feel like Sis might be dropping on the Grave Robber here, might be the end of the character.
Might do enough damage just to put her to 0, and then the heart attack's just going to finish her off at that point.
Yeah, also quite likely just goes for a stun, right, which is the safer play here. More accuracy, still almost drops her to 0, and this means she can no longer Shadow Fade, obviously, which is also quite a decent deal for Sis here. Also, he has access to the secondary stun here with this Abomination. It does come down indeed, and this means 2 stunned characters for Goliath looks super hopeless for the man right now. What a quick series.
Pitfalls, a very quick series. It's one of the pitfalls of having, or like falling behind against the stun team. If you have like 2 or 3 stuns on your team and you lose 1 or 2 characters, it snowballs so quickly from there, because they can just rotate stuns and they can safely heal. They can play very cautiously, and if they have some kind of horror or damage over time strategy, they can just wear you down while they control and stay alive.
And Sis is looking absolutely lethal. Playing is probably the second strongest player in the group, judging just by the sheer amount of games that Goliath has been able to put on the board overall. He has been such a stable performer throughout all the Butcher's Circus release, and you just have to feel like Goliath, if he falls to 0 to Sis, you just have to really wonder who is going to be able to stop Sis in his tracks, going for this 3-0 finish in this group, which I feel is kind of a realistic result, seeing how well he has been playing right now.
Yeah, very good game 2 from Sis, by the way. Like, game 1, recovered, played well to get through that one, and then game 2, just a very dominating performance. Just everything seemed to be the right choice in the right order, set up the right future turn, stuff like that. And I was thinking back to, is that the surrender? It looks like it. So I was thinking back to when you were talking about using your turn time and stuff like that. I'm thinking, you do get the 30 seconds or the full 2 minutes per turn, and it's okay. It's good to think through one turn, like your current turn, but if you have extra time, start thinking about your next turn. Start thinking about the turn after that, because you have all the time in the world at that point.
Yeah. Oh, okay, this is so clean. Like, seriously, he just put on a clinic there in that game. So, would you like to stick around for game number 2 as well for the second match? Because I feel like this one was super short. So, unless you need a break, obviously, we could do like another cast. How do you feel about that, Shuffle?
No, I'm good to stay. I don't know if you had anyone else that was like, no man, I need to cast right now. Get me on there.
Adelbart, cool. I feel like Adelbart is going to take over for the following series then. So it is just going to be a great series for you to cast. Cetra versus Cherry, actually. So Cherry, you actually have not seen Cherry play that much on stream. I'm not really sure how well she is going to perform. She's obviously darkest rank, or close to being darkest rank regardless. And obviously Cetra, a very scary opponent. You might know her as the Shepherd Doggo, I think, as well. He has been quite a, how do you say this? He has been consistently coming to my stream, watching the games, performing the viewing games as well. He is a very, very scary player at his own right. However, you just have to feel like, Cherry as well, this huge question mark, a huge unknown. Coached by Sis, by the way, he has been actually teaching her the game. He has been teaching her all the ropes of the Butcher's Circus. So she is an extremely potent player coming into this matchup right now. And we'll probably see Cetra streaming for us. I'm just going to ask the guys to set up right now. So yeah. Can you kind of take over the cast for a second? And I do need to do some production stuff, you can say.
All right, that's completely fine. Welcome everyone to the Butchers League series, the inaugural set of games, qualifiers and such. Very exciting games so far. So if you're enjoying stuff, obviously I'm not as good at plugging as Sis, but if you are enjoying stuff, hit the likes, hit the comments, hit the subscribes, do all the stuff, hit your keys in the chat, just let people know that you're enjoying yourself. And I've been a huge fan of the deck format specifically, because I was wondering what a tournament would look like for something like Butcher's Circus. And, you know, you could just run your normal couple teams and stuff, but I think the Conquest-style deck format makes this a very fun and special kind of thing. So far, the level of play has been just incredibly high from pretty much everyone across the board. So it feels like the whole bracket is just stacked with killers. And obviously we see some very strong plays from Sis and whoever else, SBRH. There's just a lot of good players. But anyone that even loses a series at this point, I don't think they should be ashamed. They're just playing literally the best people. And then they have other games in this group stage to try and pick it up. But obviously, if you're in these early games, you want these convincing 2-0s to help out your tiebreakers and your placements going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And every single one matters, as we've said, right? Obviously, I agree with you. Losing here is no shame at all, because you are playing against the top 8 players, potentially the most proficient people at this format we have right here. So no shame at all to Goliath being taken down by Sis, especially that Sis is indeed probably one of the strongest players we have overall. You have to feel like Sis, SBRH, Mangle are probably the top 3 in this tournament. Obviously, we don't really know the result of this group, so it might be too early to say that. But again, like Goliath as well, is such a powerhouse here coming into this series. So him being taken down so quickly is a scary bit. This series, however, like I have no bets of my own at all, because I do know that both those players can perform extremely well, and this is just going to be up to, down to their execution, down to their picks, and down to the bans, which we might just see come down.